I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I work 13-hour days. But I promised my friend Bill that I would mod up a PlayStation 2 for him last year. Now, I know that I said in the last PS2 video that I was washing my hands of the system forever, but I think there are a few things that are left to be said for the Slim model. Now, what you're seeing before you is actually the SCPH-70012 series. Now, in my opinion, this is the only slimline PS2 model worth owning. Why is that? Well, in subsequent slimline PS2 models, the PS1 CPU, which is a MIPS R3000, was dropped from the production line. Now, this not only has a negative impact on PS1 titles, but PS2 titles as well. The R3000 was replaced by an IBM ASIC, codenamed Deckard, which I believe is just a fun sort of play of words to suggest replicant, meaning that the IBM ASIC is replicating the functions of the PS1's R3000. Now, I'm going to go over some new techniques that we haven't investigated together, and we're going to do some preemptive maintenance specifically for this model and the laser assembly. So sit back, strap on, and let's go back and finish this once and for all. So just like always, we'll begin by breaking the unit down. Okay, so we've got the top totally off here, and with the 70012 series, there's only one screw that we have to remove in order to take the main board out of this thing. But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's disengage this ribbon cable here, which holds the power and reset sort of daughter PCB in place. So we'll just very carefully remove that, and we'll come over here to the controller port, and we'll just remove that Phillips screw, and by this point also take out this little tamper-proof tab. This is to lock this thing down. No one ever uses that, but we'll remove that too. And just what I like to do is pick it up and hold the system at about a 45-degree angle from the surface you're working with. Grab the AV port and just sort of rock it like that. Sometimes these things get a little jammed in there, but you want to rock it and bring this forward. Bring it forward. And then to clear the USB ports and the controller ports as you bring it forward, just simply pull back. If you do it that way, you'll run a very low risk of damaging anything, and believe me, I've seen people damage these main boards upon removal. But now we have several screws here we need to remove on the back plane, so might get a little reflecty here and shiny in the video. I apologize for that, so let's remove these. But before we remove those, I goofed up and I forgot we do need to remove the 4 post screws that hold the laser sled and assembly in place. So that's really simple. We'll just come in here again with the Phillips, and we'll just back these out. Don't have to remove them totally, but these screws do anchor to the bottom plate that we just looked at. So let's just real quick like come in here and take these out. Be sure not to disturb or lose the bushings here. Those are very important to have. And underneath, we do have a screw here, another Phillips. This one is just as important as the others, so we'll just come in here. And we'll remove that too. Okay, now this should just simply be a matter of grabbing this bottom guard plate and just coming in here and sort of lifting it up like so. And oops, looks like I forgot a screw up here. There we are. And we'll just very carefully lift this up And now we have complete complete exposure of the bottom main board, and this is primarily where we'll be working with. And this is a GH035 revision, the best Slim PS2 mainboard assembly in my opinion. So having said that, I think it's time we get into business here. So let's do it. Now we're kind of zoomed out just a bit here of the general area that we'll be working in, which is primarily from sort of this area down into this section here. And you know, when you're doing something that requires a lot of wire routing, it's really important to think about that wire routing and where exactly everything is going to live before you even start, because you may get in the middle of something and realize, oh shit, I don't have enough room, or oh, I didn't take this thing into account while I'm doing this. So what I like to do with this particular model is, and forgive me, this has been a couple of years at least since I've done one of these, I think, but I like to let that little jewel live in about this area here. Now this gives me a plenty of room for my BIOS hookups here, where we hook into the BIOS, and the drive controller and the oscillating and the clock for this to run, and everything has plenty of room on this side. But more importantly, we're installing an additional fix that will keep the laser from imploding on itself if you're using bad or dirty media or burnable media that's of low quality, and that needs to have room to live in here too, about in this area where I'm pointing to. So in my opinion, the best place to situate this is in this general vicinity right here. It affords you plenty of room here, and it affords you plenty of room here on the back side, all while giving plenty of room for your PIC Fix microcontroller to live in the area that it needs to live in. So having said that, I don't think I'm going to be giving too much commentary unless something comes up, probably more so when I'm doing the PIC Fix, but from now on, things are going to be pretty quiet, and you're just going to see some technique here, so sit back and enjoy yourselves. Now, I will give a little commentary about some quick board prep here. Some of these PS2 mainboard revisions, you'll find that there is a thin layer or barrier of varnish or lacquer over all of these exposed surface mount pads and through-hole traces. Now, what I like to do is simply use a fiberglass pen with a little mechanical abrasive force to remove that varnish so that you can actually get into contact with the surface area of the copper here, and you can actually tin and wet these areas, because a lot of these fine traces and all of these fine vias that you see here, most of the drive controller pinout that we have to solder to lives in here. So we need to come in here and we need to make sure that we're making good contact. So to do that, again, we'll just take this fiberglass pin here and we'll come in here like so, and we'll just very lightly run it over these traces here. I'm sorry, over these vias. And we're just going to make contact with just about everything. And you can see that you can see that the metal appears to become lighter in these vias. Well, that's just simply because we are removing that layer and that lacquer. Good. And you can see a difference. Clearly you can see a very big difference. We can now access these, whereas if we try to solder to these, we wouldn't get any wetting action because the solder is not able to make contact because there's that barrier of lacquer. So, fun little tip, you may run into this on the same mainboard revisions that you know, you may not see this at all. Very strange how they did that, but nonetheless, it's just all in the coding process. Let's proceed. took our isopropyl alcohol and our brush, and we just simply cleaned this area of the flux that was left over from working these conductors in. But now we need to do something that's pretty important because we really only get one chance, and that is chip placement. Now, all the signals that you see here that we've already laid out, those are the drive controller signals. And those correspond to the pins here on the left side, or excuse me, the pads on the left side. A all the way up to Y. That's what these conductors correspond with. So, what I like to do is I like to just sort of position the chip loosely of where it's going to live, maybe close to an area like this. And what I'll do is I'll just take the conductors, and I know the pin out of these, so I don't have to worry about that, because notice that there is no overlapping and all of these are in fairly seamless order. So I'm just going to sort of put this chip here like so, and that's pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this chip off. I want to take a tool like this flat-headed screwdriver, this micro precision screwdriver. And what I'm going to do is, you know what, I might not even need to use it. I might be able to use my index finger of my right hand, because this is such a small wire grouping. While I'm holding all these wires together, we'll give it a try. We're going to shift them and rotate 90 degrees if we can, like so. And hey, that's working out quite nicely. So we'll have that in place here. And now I'm going to grab that chip again. I'm going to place this over. And yep, that's going to work nicely. So what I'm going to do is, all of the wiring that you see is actually going to live underneath this chip. As a matter of fact, you're not going to see any of this, not the way that I do it. So I'm just sort of prepping and getting these wires in position. Now that they're in position, I can kind of lock them into place. And the way that I like to do that is I'll take a little glue, and something to really keep in mind, I am not gluing to the main board. I'm just grouping these wires together, and I'm going to apply a little glue to the surface of these, a very small amount, so that these wires will stay together in their grouping. Again, I'm not gluing to the main board, I'm just gluing to the wires themselves. So now these wires will stay in position, and that they'll stay in this nice tight grouping. And I'm just going to hold this here for a few seconds and let this dry up a little bit. Once this glue cures, I can let go of this, and these wires will stay exactly where they are, and I can move forward with putting this chip into place. And oops, that's the wrong way. It'll go in actually like this way, like so. Get this chip into place here, and we can get started on one section. So let's do it. Now, we're going to begin stripping the insulation from these wires, and we're going to be soldering to our pinouts here. And there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about. On the last PS2 video that I did, you saw that I simply brought the conductor up like so. In this case, this is going to be conductor B. I got it into position here. I would just bend this over. And I would take my cutters and I would cut this. If I could find my cutters, so here they are. And I would cut this, to form about like that. Get that out of there. And then I would just take my iron, and I would put a little bit of solder on there to kind of create more of a heat mass. And I would just rotate this around the conductor until we cleared that insulation, like so. Just like that, and then I would take something like, well, I guess I could take my finger. I would just clear that off, like that, And that's relatively clean, but it isn't the cleanest way of doing it. And it really depends on the type of wire. If you're using a high melting temp Kynar, this insulation won't melt so much. It'll just retract when you heat it up. But of course, you know, I would finish that off by, after prepping the wire, I would just dab a little flux on there, and we would come right in here with the wire in approximate position, and we would just put that into place like so. Not the cleanest thing in the world. Functional, but not the cleanest thing in the world. Let me show you another way of doing this. Let's get a wire prepped and sort of in position here. So we're going to do conductor H. I'm just going to pull this up like so, get into position. It's going to live right here. Let's bend it over so we make sure we have enough slack when we cut this thing. It's going to be right there. Perfect. Now I'm just going to bring my cutters in here. I want to cut this off like so. Great. Now, you don't have to use those big expensive cutters if you don't have them. Go buy some cheap ass fingernail clippers, and these will allow you to get in very close, because we have to get in really close right here, and strip that insulation, all for $1.40 at your local, you know, pharmacy. So we're going to try that. We're going to come right in here. I want to see if I can get this in the shot, which I think I can do a pretty good job of that. Yep, that looks pretty good. Let's pick it up a little bit. So I'm going to come right in here. And I can see I need to take off about, I guess, 1 millimeter of material. So I'm going to come right in there and grab about 1 millimeter of material. I'm not going to clip and press all the way. I'm just going to get a hold of this and put a little pressure and a little tension on there. And I'm just going to lift up, just like that. And I don't know if you saw that, but we stripped that conductor. Let me do it again, because we got to get a little more material off than that. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to come just like that. And we're going to pull just like that. As you can see, we've got about 1.5 millimeters of material exposed, and this is ready. I mean, that's all there is to that. Super easy. We've been doing this, using this technique for years. I still use it from time to time. You know, for the past decade or so of doing this, you know, this is just one of those sort of methods when you're doing wire wrapping. Not just for things like this, but any sort of wire wrapping, and you need to get in tight and close. Well, you can use just that. And, you know, as far as soldering this in, we can either choose to flux it or not flux it. Doesn't really matter at this point, but it's in position. We're going to come down with our iron. And that's super clean. Now the flux on the unspent flux on the board makes that look kind of nasty, so if we come in here with a brush, we kind of remove that by just coming in here. Super clean. And with that final wire on our PIC Fix, that pretty much concludes this video. You know, I love the 700,000 series PS2 Slim. It's basically a fat PS2 that's just been downscaled and miniaturized with all the same chips. And you know, this Matrix PIC Fix that we installed is, for the most part, exclusive to this model. So you know, we've got some footage here, obviously, this running, booting PS1 games and PS2 games fantastically. You know, I'm kind of surprised that I had this much fun doing this. You know, going back and revisiting this old girl. It's been a few years, and it's just interesting when you've not done something for so long, yet when you go back, it all comes back to you like muscle memory, and just kind of remembering precisely, you know, how you routed all this stuff, you know, so many years ago. But at any rate, I hope you enjoyed this. This was fairly, you know, well requested, quite a bit. So I hope that you guys take something from this, and plenty of videos to come in the future. Finally, I think I can actually say that I'm putting the PS2 at rest. We're putting it to bed, and we'll be doing a lot of other fun stuff. Time's just been, you know, getting away from me lately, but having said that, I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, give it a consideration. I've got a ton of cool stuff like this that I'll be doing in the future. And of course, leave comments down below, like, all that good stuff. But having said that, guys, we'll catch you later. Take care for now.